Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. Now some of you may have seen my last video where I did an endurance flight with the Hubsan X4 while using X4 parts anyway. These are H107D motors, H107D flight controller, no FPV camera, just so that I could have a little bit less weight. But of course the FPV camera only weighs 4 grams. I'm sure I could add that to this at a later date. And of course using the 1600 milliamp battery, the one cell battery from the Walkera hexacopter. Now I said in the last video that I believed that the Hubsan propellers were a little bit more efficient than the ladybird propellers, so I'm going to try and do that flight again, but using this. Also, I've realized that the rubber band that I was using weighed a gram, so I've managed to lose a gram there by using this ultra lightweight. In fact, you probably can't see it on the video, but it's see-through rubber band that actually came in another package. So yeah, I'm gonna give that another try. I'm going to use my phone to record the timing again. Now I'm not gonna speed this video up just because I don't really have a way of showing the timing in real time. I don't have sort of a time slide or anything like that, so I'm afraid you're just going to have to skip to the end of the video if you don't want to watch it all. But however, what I've decided to do is I'm going to have a little bit of a chat whilst I'm flying. That is if I do get a decent flight time out of this, just to sort of say how I got into the hobby and sort of my experience through the whole thing. So without further ado, let's get the quad bound and get my stopwatch up. Make sure that none of the wires are touching, and let's go. So I'm going to trim it out first. I probably could have done with having that JST wire actually sort of banded to the front, because it's sticking out there. That's going to affect the balance slightly, but there we go. I'm just going to try and get this balanced out a bit. I'm not going to fly around as much as I did the last time. Sort of did a couple of pirouettes last time, but this time I'm going for endurance, okay? Just get a bit better trim. Yeah, definitely not as stable as the ladybird props, but maybe more efficient on the flight time. I think if I was to fly this with this battery, I would use the ladybird props. We've got about the same throttle level as the ladybird, so as the ladybird props, so the thrust level's about the same. Yeah, definitely a lot more movement with this one. Okay, so if I'm going to get a 17-minute flight out of this, I might as well start chatting. So I got into this hobby when I was about 10 years old, and I'm sure everyone has a reason for why they wanted to get into it. And mine was the movie Short Circuit 2, believe it or not. There was a scene in it where there was an RC sort of club flying their gas planes. Right? It was all gas planes back then. And I thought, oh, that looks fantastic, I want to go with that. So at the age of 10 I saved all my pocket money up, and there used to be classifieds in the paper. There was no internet back then, so there was a classified in the paper. Someone had got a plane for sale that they had sort of half built. So me and my dad went down, had a look at it. The chap actually started it up in his kitchen, which was a bit strange. I've not seen that before either. RC plane, a gas RC plane started up inside, but he did that. It didn't have any radio gear though. I think we bought it for about £80. But yeah, no radio gear. So then kept looking in the paper every night, coming home from school. Found someone selling a radio system. Had no idea what the mode would be, didn't know anything about it at all. Anyway, we bought this radio system, and it was mode 1. It was a handset called Digifleet. It was basically, well, it looks similar to this actually, but of course no, didn't have any LCD on it or anything like that. It was just a box really. And we took it to our local hobby store, which at the time wasn't far away. Of course there are no hobby stores near where I live now, not really anyways. And it turned out that the aircraft that we had bought was fairly sort of half decently built, and it just so happens that the club that the RC shop ran flew mode 1, which was just really lucky and a coincidence. So anyways, I was no good at building or anything like that, so I think my dad spent probably about a year on and off between coming home from work, and we finally got it built. And so I joined this RC club, and we flew this plane for the first time. Well, I'll say I didn't fly it. They had instructors at the club, and they flew it. And I had a go of it. They took it up to, you know, a height of until you couldn't hardly see it, and I was so nervous. I was flying around. I'd say this was my life savings at the age of 10, flying in the air. But eventually, you know, I managed to come round to it and started enjoying flying it. Now the club that I was in became BMFA affiliated. Now BMFA is the British Model Flying Association, which then meant that you had to pass a test in order to show that you could fly competently. So I think I was flying around about 2 years on a buddy box, just taking it really slow. Wasn't really interested in, you know, learning really fast. And after about 2 years, I think I'd done my first landing, and eventually I passed my, I'm not sure if it's still called this, but it was like the A test. It was like the sort of the bare minimum to be able to fly solo. And so I passed that, and then another year went by and I went for my B test, which is the more advanced test. You did sort of aerobatic maneuvers, rolls and things like that. And I passed that, and about the age of 12 I became an instructor for the club. And so that's where people would turn up and they would have their model, they'd get a buddy box system sorted, and I would be sort of the main pilot. I'd take off for them, and then I'd instruct them on how to fly, and until they would pass their A test and B test and become instructors themselves. And that's just how it worked. You did all that for free. You paid a subscription to the club, and it was sort of like a unwritten rule that, you know, if you got trained up, then you would train someone else up. And I did that for years. I think so from about the age of 10 to about the age of 19, and then I sort of got bored with it, really. There was sort of very small advances in technology, but mostly we were needing to use glow engines and using the old 35 megahertz transmitters. And so I kind of took it to a level where I didn't think I could take it anymore. I was flying 3D, but with the glow engines, and you know, people started leaving the club and getting bored of it themselves, and yeah, I just stopped going. Probably in about when I was about 19, something like that. I went to pursue other hobbies. I did a bit of racing driving in cars, and then my friend actually got me back into RC. In about 2005 he bought a shock flyer, an Icarus shock flyer, and I absolutely loved it. I loved that it was clean, it was electric, still running on 35 megahertz for the control, but there were some 2.4 radios out at that point. And I spent a lot of my money, and I bought an Icarus shock flyer, in which I could then just fly it out on the field out there. So that sort of got me back into it for a while, but then again, sort of that was sort of limited. and I sort of give up with it again for a few years. And then a couple of years ago, I started watching the Flight Test channel, and obviously that opened me back up to all sorts of technology. I rebuilt a shop flyer, went on the Icarus webpage, and they still sold the biplane, so I built that up. But then I added a camera to it. I added just like an 808. I can't remember which version it was. The 16 wasn't out yet. And I love the fact that it sort of added a new angle to the hobby that you didn't have before. I remember actually someone in my club years ago put one of those massive handycams. He built a massive Piper Cub with like a 4-stroke engine and put a full-size camcorder in his plane, and that was sort of, we were just blown away by that. But of course we didn't want our full-size handycams inside the plane. You know, quite a lot of money in the air, 600 quid's worth of camera to go wrong if it crashed. So yeah, I didn't fancy doing that. But of course then all these micro cameras, these keychain cameras came out. I thought, well, I'll have a go at that. So I fitted one to my biplane, and I was hooked. And then of course, going back to the Flight Test channel, they actually, I got into helicopters. I think it was before these quadcopters, especially the micro quadcopters, had come out yet. But these sort of micro 3D helicopters came out, and so I got on the old simulator. I had an XTR simulator, and I learned how to fly helicopters on there. Learned about fixed pitch against collective pitch, the differences. Learned how to fly 3D helicopters, and then I sort of just waited, and then eventually these micro quadcopters came out. Now, normal size quadcopters were available, but they were a bit out of my price range for something that if I wasn't sure I would like. So the option of the H107D came out. I was on the RC Group's forums, and saw Bang Comet made us post on this quadcopter that had come out. So oh, actually I missed a section. Actually, what happened was I noticed that Flight Test had reviewed the Hubsan Skyhawk. That's actually this transmitter that I'm flying this with. But yeah, Hubsan released the Skyhawk. Actually, we're just coming up to 10 minutes. I was just noticing that, just keeping a check on things. Yeah, so the Skyhawk came out, and that was my entrance to FPV, really. And it's an aircraft I still love. I've still got it and use it. But I kind of felt that with that, I'd sort of gone to the limits with that, with the range and everything. And actually, recently I've revived that aircraft. I realised that you could fit a Mobius camera to it, and I've got a few Mobius cameras now, and so that's a joy to still fly. But then, of course, following on from the Hubsan, it was actually Hubsan that got me into FPV. They released the H107D, and I bought that. And just hooked with that. Obviously, it was flawed. It had a very narrow angle on the field of view. And so started experimenting with the lenses, fitting the jelly lens. Some people fitted the 808 lens, removed the casing. I tried that 3 times and destroyed the VTX every time. So I still have not successfully done that, and I still don't recommend people doing that, but maybe it's just my heavy-handedness when it comes to removing the case. But I was very careful with that. I still wouldn't recommend that. But yeah, so very recently with these micro quads, I started experimenting with these micro frames from Picnic Quads, and then I found that other people were releasing their micro frames as well on the Micro Motor Warehouse. So I've always kind of been handy with a soldering iron. I'm not brilliant, but I started buying these motors separately and the controller board separately and making up my own version. And then I got into learning about the micro VTXs, and I started out on the FPV hobby website using their 1 gram camera, and also their micro VTXs, the 1.3 VTXs from Ready Made RC. That's sort of my favourite FPV setup. I also experimented, you can see previously on my channel, experimenting with the UHF video transmitter. That's a lot of fun if you just want to tune your TV into the video frequency and fly for TV, but that has its limitations. It's great for flying around a house, but you can't really fly sort of further than outside the front of your house with it, really. So that sort of brings us up to modern day, really. Now that I know that I like these quads, I bought the V666 quadcopter, which you've seen a video of. Wouldn't really recommend that quad. I thought I would at first, but ever since I've had it, it's been plagued with problems. The range is really poor on it for the FPV, and also the range of the flight controller. But I think I've received a duff one. There's supposedly another version of it on its way to me from Banggood. I buy most of my stuff from Banggood, Ready Made RC, FPV Hobby, and various other websites for little pieces, eBay for the motors and stuff like that. But yeah, I bought the V666, had nothing but problems with that, but really enjoyed flying a bigger quad. So I bought the Flying 3D X6, which is a really good quad. And in the summer, I'm hoping to build a bigger size quad, like a 450 size quad, and add my own FPV gear to it. But really, I'm limited at the moment. Can't really fly outside. There's about a 30-mile-an-hour wind today. It's a Saturday today, and we have a 30-mile-an-hour wind, so I'm stuck to flying indoors. So I thought, let's experiment with some batteries, which I have done before. Usually I fly the 500 milliamp battery that you get off Banggood, where you can buy them in 5s. I've also tried a 700 milliamp battery on this quad and got an 11-minute flight. What are we on now? We're on 14 minutes, 15 minutes we're at. So, not looking too bad. The quad's a little bit shaky. So yeah, that brings us up to modern day, where I am now flying these micro quads. And I'm maybe perhaps going to buy the Hubsan H109. They're sort of big FPV quadcopter with the gimbal. I'm still sort of in two minds whether to do that. It depends whether I manage to build my own that sort of more suits my needs, because I'm interested in getting really nice footage for YouTube, but I'm not really too bothered about relying on GPS or having an Android in the set, you know, although I do have an Android phone and I do enjoy Android, but so the jury's still out on that one. I think I'll wait for other people to get one before I do. It's a very expensive thing to buy. You know, everything I've done is on the cheap, really. I've gone for the cheap side of the quadcopters, and Hubsan, you know, so far have just released cheap products, but they've been fairly good quality, and so I am interested to see how a sort of more DJI Phantom style quad is going to come out. I mean, there's a lot of development that they've had to go into with that quad. They've had to come out with their own camera, and you know, they've gone even further with it, put Android in the set, as I mentioned. And I'm not sure I'm that interested in waypoints and things like that. I don't think that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, you know, you've heard my sort of experience through how I came into the hobby and that, and these DJI Phantoms and these waypoint controls and things like that, it's all about people who can't fly and relying on the fact that you know, they're relying on the GPS to fly the plane, the quad for them. You know, whereas I come very much from a background of you're the one that's to fly it, you know. And so all these Hubsans that have come out so far have all been about manually flying them, learning how to fly. And this X4 Pro quad that's coming out, although it does have the manual controls, they are advertising it more like a DJI Phantom in that it's really easy to fly, the thing will take off itself, select the waypoints, it'll go and film the stuff. You won't even have to do anything except hit the return to home button if it runs out of juice. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. You know, I think it's really impressive, and of course I think it should exist. You know, everything that I'm trying to do here is to sort of like push the boundaries of what is possible. You know, we're on a 19-minute flight at the moment with the Hubsan X4. I think that just proves that these props are more efficient than the ladybird, and hopefully that's what we're going to get out of this. Ignore the fact that I've been flying for, 19 minutes or whatever. The fact shows that if you're flying with this quad and you're wondering about different props, the fact that the Hubsan props may not be as stable, but they're certainly more efficient for these size motors. And I'm sure Hubsan, either it was a complete fluke and it just turned out that the prop design that they come up with is very efficient, or they did a lot of research and actually it was designed that way, which I would like to think, I would like to hope that that is how it happened. Some people mention I should try the rolling spider props, which I do have, but those are much bigger props and certainly not going to expect this kind of flight time out of those either. I think this is the most efficient option for this quad, and it's turning out to be so far. So yeah, I would like to see what everyone else had managed to do. I think this is certainly so far the longest flight I've seen with one of these. We're coming up to 20 minutes. The Hubsan X4 Pro is set to fly for 30 minutes, which I think is great. It's a huge battery though, 7,000 milliamps on that thing. Takes 2 hours to charge. Then again, this battery takes 1 hour, 17 minutes to charge fully. There we go, we've just hit 20 minutes, so that's 3 more minutes past what I managed to fly last time. This time, I am gonna fly right up to the point where it literally won't fly any further. The last time I thought, well, I'll land it early because I really like this battery, I don't want to destroy this battery, but since that flight I've gone and bought 2 of these batteries because actually I was really impressed with it. So I don't really care if I kill this battery now, so let's fly it to the death. I don't know how long that's going to be, of course. I prefer to fly with this Spyhawk transmitter, as I mentioned in other videos. I love the resolution of it, but of course you don't get the telemetry. Supposedly you have telemetry on the H107D transmitter, which I've never used. I've used twice, I've modified it, still don't like it. I would rather take having no telemetry and having a better flight experience. I always thought it would be interesting if you sort of tethered this quad. Well, I say interesting, as interesting as this video is. You could actually probably tether this quad to the mains, and well, then you could just fly it for as long as you wanted, in the confines of a room. Just have a wire going up to it with the 3.7 volts, and you've got endless flying out of it. But of course you do have a wire sort of trailing behind. Now here's an idea. How about we have an inductive charging on it, and the thing just flies around forever. Well, anyways, I'll stop chatting there. We've got LVC has kicked in at 22 minutes. I hope my Mobius is still recording. I'm not sure if the Mobius can record for 22 minutes. Just sort of gonna hover very slowly. I think we got about a minute of LVC the last time, but that was with the different props. All the characteristics change when you change the props. I think I got the balance just right with this. The trim's pretty much in the middle. still got a bit of lift, but the throttle is definitely getting closer to the top. We have touchdown. 22 minutes 49. That's definitely a new record for me. Thanks for watching.